Good day guys, so today I'm going to be reviewing Into the Water. I think I'm going to include some spoilers later on, but obviously as usual I shall let you know when they arrive. So, Into the Water by Paula Hawkins. This is her second book, I believe, after The Girl on the Train. It's not a continuation or anything like that, it's a complete new standalone novel also, I believe. Basically, I'm trying to kind of explain this as easy as I can without getting too tangled into the plot and stuff, because obviously I want to talk about that separately. But this is about the story of many people, I suppose, but our main character is the sister of Nell Abbott, who died falling off of a cliff, or, you know, otherwise malicious behaviour towards her falling off of a cliff. We find out more as we go on. And almost like the pull that triggered that, it's also focusing on this pool known as the drowning pool, and how this isn't the first time that a death surrounding the drowning pool has happened, and it's almost about the fixation of that, which almost feels magical in itself, and just kind of like the story of everybody's lives that this drowning pool has affected in some way. So I actually, as you just could see, find it quite difficult to explain the plot of this without going too much into it, just because I guess a lot has gone on and you would consider it as kind of like a crime, murder mystery sort of thing, but at the same time I definitely feel like it's more of a character driven plot. It's more about the study of these characters and their motivations behind certain actions and words and what they do. It's more about their lives being affected by this drowning pool, how some way and somehow everybody's involved and everybody has an influence over the events that's happened. It's also about, of course, if this case of Nell Abbott falling into the pool was her own desire, her own suicide, or if she got pushed. And it's about the other deaths around the drowning pool that have happened in the past, the present, and I guess the future. So yeah, it is a lot to take in. There's a lot that goes on, and at first glance, hearing that or whatever, you would think, holy crap, this is going to be intimidating. I mean, I felt that as well, especially when I realised the amount of point of views that was going on. But honestly, it wasn't, and I'll get into that in a second. So I ended up giving this a 4.5 stars. I mean, I hate to compare it to other things that the author has done, but I just can't help it. Once I've read a story from an author that I really enjoy, I can't help but compare anything else they bring out to the one that I've really enjoyed. And in this case, I've read The Girl on the Train, really enjoyed that, and I couldn't help but compare and contrast how I felt about this book in comparison with that. So I will say, you guys know that I enjoyed The Girl on the Train. However, this one, I almost feel like I enjoyed the story like that a little bit more, just because it did have that mystical kind of magical element to it, like especially when you're considering the drowning pool and the events that have happened in the past. So I think because it had that extra little element, I enjoyed the story more. However, it's not exactly a thriller. I wouldn't describe it to be a thriller such as The Girl on the Train was, because this is definitely more about the characters as opposed to who did it, you know, what's happening in the plot, you know. So although it did have a strong plot, I think it's kind of left almost open in a way, because that in my mind wasn't the focus. I feel like you're kind of left to be as confused as some of the characters were by the end of the book, so don't go in expecting to get every single answer that you could ever dream of. It's not that kind of book. To the comparison with The Girl on the Train, I can't help but feeling, because it took me a while to read this, that also hindered my reading experience a little bit, so that's why I can't exactly say yes, I love this so much more than The Girl on the Train, because I had a long time reading it and I just felt like, oh, if I enjoyed it so much I should have read it quicker. But I don't know, I'm just a bit confused about that. But generally, taking the story and everything, I liked that more than I liked The Girl on the Train. In terms of writing style, I really appreciated that Paula Hawkins kept her kind of diary entry style, but as well as that, we get different point of views from loads of different characters. Embedded within that, we have loads of different, like, first person, second person, third person. Also mixed in with that, we have a lot of different ages from the characters and all that. And yeah, that's where I said it kind of feels like it might be intimidating to read because there's a lot to keep track of. It might get confusing, but to be honest, I feel like everybody had quite a distinct voice, and even if you did get a little bit confused at who you was reading from, it's really quite helpful because in the header where you'd usually see the name of the book and like the author, instead of the author you had the character whose chapter you were reading from, so you could just glance at that and be like, oh yeah, that's who I'm reading from, because some of them do sound a little bit similar, especially if, say, you're reading from a member of the police force. There was 2 you were reading from in this, so you were like, oh, which one is that again? So that was a helpful tool, I guess. The fact that there was a lot going on in terms of the amount of people that you were reading from and all that, I honestly just feel like it added a sort of texture to it, and it made it more complex in its understanding, even though it was generally a simple idea, simple sort of plot. All of those different layers added to its intensity, you know, which I've really enjoyed and really appreciated. I think some of my favourite characters was Jules, which is Nell Abbott's sister, Lena, which is Nell's daughter, so Jules' niece, and Nikki, which is people describe her to be like a crazy old woman that's a con artist, but there's a lot to her than you would have thought. So they were my 3 kind of main favourites because their voices were strong. Some of them you didn't get a lot of voice from more than the others. I mean, with Jules you got a lot of chapters with her because I guess technically she was the main character, and because she was like directly impacted by the events of Nell's death. Overall, for this non-spoiler section, I would totally recommend it. I think that if you like The Girl on the Train, you're probably going to like this because it has similar sort of writing style, obviously. However, don't go in expecting it's going to be like a thrilling whodunit crime mystery novel sort of book. It's not that. It's definitely more of a character-centered book. You're going in, you're diagnosing these characters, you're seeing what makes them tick, you're seeing what makes them do things, and it's definitely more about those rather than the plot, even though the plot is good, you know. So that's it for the non-spoiler section. I've got a few things I just want to mention quickly for spoilers, so do stick around if you have read this, but if not, speak to you later. Spoilers. I'm very confused with the very ending. I was quite content when Patrick admitted that he murdered Nell and he murdered his wife, and you know, he was quite a violent person. And then, you know, he was sent down to prison, everything, all that was good. Everything seemed to be getting on, people trying to move on with their lives as much as they could with such a tragedy. And then we come back to Sean. And the way he was describing it, as he was with Nell on the cliff, and he said he pushed her. I didn't quite understand. Did he kill her? Did he push her off the cliff, or what? I'm still like quite confused with that. I don't really understand what that was supposed to mean. I was reading this kind of with my friend Maria, and she's equally confused with that. Like, what was that about? Did he push her or what? Like, what was the whole story that Patrick was saying then? Like, what has gone on? So yeah, we're definitely left with some loose threads. I don't know if it's sequel bait. I wouldn't mind possibly if they had a short novella just explaining that, but to be honest, I'm quite happy with these loose threads. I don't want everything to be tied up in a pretty bow. I want to be kept guessing, even if it is a little bit frustrating. But yeah, that's it for this video. Just quickly wanted to mention that little bit. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Don't forget to let me know what you thought. Bye.